Hello, New Mexico, and welcome to another episode of Around the Roundhouse, the New Mexicans podcast featuring the policies, politics, and personalities of the state capitol during the 60-day session. My name is Daniel Chacon, and I'm the state government reporter for the New Mexican. Every week, my colleagues and I will be bringing you the latest news and information from the Roundhouse, as well as recapping the highlights and sharing interviews with key political figures. Our guest this week is Senator Crystal Brantley, a Republican who has served in the New Mexico Senate since 2021. Thank you, Senator Brantley, for joining us. I think a lot of folks still refer to you as Senator Diamond.
Yes, I am the senator formerly known as Crystal Diamond. That's right. But since I was elected in 2020, I have gotten married. And so, I've taken his last name, and it's Senator Brantley now.
Well, we're going with Senator Brantley. We're on board. We're on the Brantley team.
Great.
Senator, I'm always curious about what prompts someone to run for public office, especially one that doesn't come with a salary. What was your motivation, and is it everything you expected?
Gosh, my entry into local politics, I actually got involved on the Soil and Water Conservation Board. In a lot of rural areas, this is a well-known and pretty powerful board because they deal with a lot of natural resource issues. And I was raising my girls at the family ranch, and we had an issue with the Mexican gray wolf introduction. So I was really raising kids among wolves. And to really kind of get involved in what that program was doing and the impacts, I realized that the best way then would to be run for local office. And the Soil and Water District was pretty aggressive and active in that particular issue. Later on, when my kids were school age, I ran for school board so that I could have a direct influence and kind of be in the mix on exactly what kind of schools and communities we were raising our kids in. And then that just kind of naturally transitioned. I joined Rebecca Dow when she on her campaign team. I was her treasurer when she ran for the first time for the House, and then ended up running for the Senate seat, of course, when John Arthur lost his primary.
And what has that experience been like for you to be in the state Senate?
You know, it's a good experience. Look, I ran for my daughter. I ran as a mom, right? It's why I was involved in politics to begin with. It's why I was on the Soil and Water Board. How does this program influence raising my kids out here? How does my school district and the impacts that's having on my own kids? And as a senator, it's the same thing too. What can I do to not just create healthy and safe communities for my own daughter, but for other people's daughters too, because this is what it's all about. What are we leaving for the next generation, for our own kids and others' kids and stuff? And so it's really what motivates me is being a mom. And I know that you hear me speak about that often on the floor, but they are my influence.
Well, sort of on that topic, ahead of the session, you announced that you would be sponsoring the aims to incentivize the adoption of phone-free schools in New Mexico. Was it your experience as a mom that led you to propose such legislation?
It is, Daniel. I'm having my own challenges as trying to compete with a cell phone with my own daughters, and I run arguably a pretty tight ship at my house. And when the girls won't put their phones down, I realize there really is cell phone addiction. Right. And so when I propose this, it's an incentive. Look, the school districts, if they choose to adopt a phone-free policy, they have complete flexibility as what that policy looks like. All we're doing as a state is coming in and saying we will provide the financial incentive to pay for those lock boxes. California, I think, uses something called a yonder box. It's a magnetic clipped box that keeps that phone locked up. The teacher has a magnetic key. It may be in the cafeteria, the commons area, where they can unlock their bag. And in case of emergency, you can ruin the bag. You can tear open the bag for emergency purposes if they need to make an emergency call. Because at least I've read statistics that our kids are on their phone over 5 hours a day. I think it might be more.
I believe that.
No, it's got to be more. And if we can just get them to disconnect during the classroom hours, not just do I think that it'll help with academic proficiencies in New Mexico. We're certainly needing that. But the mental health aspect of this and the impacts of social media is a real problem, and we've got to come in and kind of help our kids where we can, and that's going to be cold turkey, at least during classroom hours.
What, if anything, have your daughters said about this idea?
I have received overwhelming support, right? The teachers' unions, I'm a Republican. Teachers' unions are helping me. I've got great feedback from teachers, administrators, tons of parents, but I'm telling you, leading the opposition are Caden and Reese Diamond, my own daughters. They are not supportive of this bill.
Well, I was thinking you're going to be really popular among parents parents and teachers and school officials. I don't know about teenagers in New Mexico, what they'll think about Senator Brantley.
Man, I'm losing popularity on the TikTok side, aren't I?
If TikTok will even survive, we'll see.
That's right.
During the governor's State of the State address, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced that she would be proposing incentives for schools that ban cell phone use during school hours, and similar with what you mentioned, funding for enhanced safety measures so parents don't have to worry about getting a hold of their kids in an emergency. Are you teaming up with the governor on this proposal?
I have spoken with the governor's office, and I had a great visit with PED. They had just a couple minor changes that they want to make to this bill. Before we move forward, we're going to make sure again that we're on the same page. And I appreciate that. This shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? It's not a rural issue. It's not an urban issue. It's not a Dem or a Republican issue. How do we come in here and get every single student to log off their phone? And we're not mandating it either, right? We are giving individual districts just an incentive to pass these programs. If for some reason that they think they want to keep phones in classrooms, that's fine. But we're incentivizing those who have taken the step to get them to disconnect.
Senator, speaking of the governor, what were some of your takeaways from the State of the State address, which, as you heard, was big on public safety and reforming the Children, Youth, and Families Department? What stuck out to you?
I got to tell you, at a surface level, I don't disagree with anything, right? But I will have to tell you that we have, as Republicans, have been introducing legislation and made these proposals for many, many years. And some of those bills have never gotten committee referrals. We know that we had a special session this last summer to address public safety.
Yes.
What a failure that was. We were here to do that good work. And all I hope is that she means it, right? I think that for New Mexicans, talk is cheap. Let's get here. Let's do right by New Mexicans, and let's pass good policy. I hope that the Democrat legislators, certainly the Republicans, are still willing to address this, and the governor, that we can really put New Mexico first. I've said this before, but I often think that politics hijacks good policy. Let's just let good policy, come through and do right by New Mexicans by finally passing some good legislation, specifically when it comes to crime and safety.
Senators, you pointed out some of these bills are ideas or proposals that Republicans have proposed in the past, and as you noted, haven't gotten very far. What's changed? Why are we seeing this push by the governor? Goodness,
I think that you can't deny that New Mexico is in a crisis, in a crime crisis. We have fentanyl epidemic that is skyrocketing. Albuquerque it's dangerous to park your car in the nice parts of town and expect it to be there when you come back. We have a homeless problem. We have a mental health void here where people aren't able to get the access they need. We can no longer deny that there's not a problem. And more importantly is we've been fortunate, this legislator, in operating in budget surplus years. But I think what's becoming apparent is money isn't fixing problems. We cannot just throw money at agencies and say, go fix homelessness, go fix mental health, go address our criminal aspect, without the teeth of policies in place to do this. And I think the governor has realized that too. I will tell you, I represent the border districts down south, and I think that an open border has caused a lot of harm to New Mexico. Being very clear to say this, I'm not talking about immigration. I'm talking about the criminal aspect that has been flowing in unchecked along that border, specifically fentanyl passage, and saying enough is enough. You're not coming through our front door.
What are some of the bills that we can expect either yourself or your colleagues to sponsor or introduce this session that would deal with border security?
I'm going to bring back the same 4 bills that I had brought back, and I have. They've been pre-filed, and they were actually called in today. I'm going to bring back the same bills that we'd introduced during the special legislative session that the governor did give a call to. That is increasing penalties for fentanyl distribution. It's going to mirror a California bill where you automatically get 3 years if fentanyl's involved in that arrest. Also, first-degree murder charges for fentanyl distribution resulting in death, to hold these drug dealers accountable when they kill someone. One is a very basic appropriation for communication infrastructure. So a lot of people don't know, but for many, 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 many miles along the New Mexico border, you don't even have cell phone service. There's no radio towers. And this is causing it's a danger zone for not just law enforcement, but visitors. We have trails that don't have communication access. And so even a lot of tourists down there find themselves in some sticky situations. But because it's such a danger zone, that appropriation for just some cell phone towers will be very beneficial. Now, Now, the fourth is probably the most controversial, and that's the banning of sanctuary cities. And I'll say this, if we are expecting criminals to abide by law as lawmakers, then we have to do it ourselves. And federal law states that, coming in and creating these sanctuary cities, saying, well, we're going to create a safe space where you don't have to abide by those federal laws, is wrong. We want them to abide by our state laws. And I'm saying that as a state of New Mexico, then we need to abide by those federal laws.
What would be the consequence of being a sanctuary city?
This one's more of just a message to those sanctuary cities that there's not a whole lot of teeth where we're going to pull back or claw back any funding, but a messaging that we all follow the laws, and it's more of a messaging on the sanctuary cities. I'll tell you right now that the priority is really the public safety, and my priority is those fentanyl bills and how we push back and really help our kids that are facing this crisis.
I spent some time in Albuquerque, what they call the International District. Some folks still refer to it as the war zone. At one point, it started to be referred as the zombie land. Have you ever seen kind of what is happening in that area and how fentanyl has affected?
I toured a safe house down there, and then I'd also toured a CYFD place in which they were taking kids who needed, it was not CYFD. This is not state operated. This was a nonprofit in which they were providing some houses for young kids that were in need. And it was so eye-opening and just heartbreaking, really, as a mom, to when you finally hear these kids age. I had to ask again and again the life that they've seen. And that's just a cycle of poverty, not having access to mental health, addiction, and just not, as a state, we're not providing them the resources they need to change their life around. And that's where government is good, right? That's the role of government. And we've got to address that. We're only strong as our weakest, right? In any situation. Right. And we have people out there who are in great need, and we need to do what we can to really help them.
Senator, I wanted to ask you that you were just recently appointed ranking Republican member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which tends to hear some of the most consequential and sometimes contentious pieces of legislation. What are some of the bills you anticipate that committee will consider during this session that will generate the most attention?
Well, it's a big change for me. When I came on, I was appointed to Senate Finance, where my predecessor, John Arthur, sat. And I really appreciate that. I was honored to have that position. But like I said, I've realized that money isn't fixing problems. And so I have an interest in kind of adopting policy. I have a really good working relationship with the chairman of Senate Judiciary, Joseph Cervantes. Is also from Las Cruces, so our districts are close to each other. And I'm excited to jump in. We have identified this as a crime session. And so the headline bills, and the majority of those bills, are going to come through Senate Judiciary. And so I'm excited to get into the mix of this. We don't have a single lawyer on the Republican caucus. So I'm not a lawyer, I should say that, and nor are my two colleagues that are on that. So we certainly have our hands full in that. But I'm a mom, and I'm a neighbor, and I know what makes safe communities. And so I'm willing to jump in and be part of the process to find solutions on how we create safer communities. Okay,
fantastic. I was recently in the Republican leadership offices at the Capitol and noticed a wall with a picture of a bunch of new Republican senators. How does this group of Republican senators differ from the previous GOP caucus, and is everybody getting along?
There's only 6 of us that returned. So 10 new members. There's 6 of us that are returning. Like in any new family, like a blended family, there's always going to be some growing pains. But I think we're committed to working together. We all at our core have, share similar values and same values. We all want what's best for our individual districts back home. We all want a safe and healthy New Mexico. And so we'll work towards that. My advice to some of the new members, though, is that this building operates on relationships. And I would say that in the campaigns, you see polarization by political parties, and it's ugly and it's messy. And I mean internally in primaries and in generals, and it's just ugly. But to recognize that you're no longer a candidate is that when you walk in here, you are a legislator. And so I represent, at this point, I'm not looking for that 51% of the vote, right? Mm-hmm. I represent 100% of Senate District 35. And they are Dems, and they are Republicans, and they have different needs and different wants. And I have to balance all of that. And so we need to all come center. And I think that arguably that's where New Mexico is.
Senator, you mentioned your district, and before the start of the session, I took some much needed time off and traveled to your neck of the woods, and even got to soak in hot springs near beautiful Elephant Butte, I should mention. Tell us about your district and what New Mexicans will see when they visit.
I had Senator Pete Compost came to me and pointed out that he has geographically a massive district up north. I have a massive district down south. He said that I think that with the combination of the two, geographically, we represent half of New Mexico with two districts. So for me to drive to Vernon in Hidalgo County, which is part of my district, it's a 4-hour drive. And so I envy those who have like a 6-block radius or 10-block radius district in Albuquerque, but it's very large. I include much of Luna County, beautiful Las Cruces. I was happy to join with Jeff Steinborn and really investing in some trails. And so all throughout my district, it's really a great place to just be outdoors. I reside in Elephant Butte in Sierra County, Truth or Consequences, formerly known as Hot Springs. And there's a reason why. We have an awesome hot springs district down there.
Yes.
I encourage you to come in, see Riverbend, Ted Turner's place at Sierra Grande. And then, of course, we have the beautiful Elephant Butte Lake. If you enjoy fishing, just boating all year round. Up in the Gila and over into Silver City, we have the Gila National Forest. If you're an outdoorsman, if you're a hunter, wonderful opportunities there. Gila Cliff Dwellings. And then now my new district includes much of Socorro County. New Mexico Tech is really an awesome gold mine. It's underrated for their geology museum, and then down into the VLA. You've seen the movie Contact, and kind of that'll bring out some stuff. It's a very diverse district, but certainly if you enjoy the outdoors, I would encourage anyone to come down and just kind of get away, enjoy New Mexico.
Well, I will certainly be back in your district. I really enjoyed it, and I did actually get to visit Riverbend, and I can't wait to go back. Senator, is there anything I'm missing to ask you? Anything that you'd like our listeners to know about this upcoming session? I'm
just excited to get through. When I joined the legislature 4 years ago, 5 sessions ago in 2021, I came on with Senator Saya Correa Hemphill, right?
Yes.
And we teamed up on a lot of good stuff to really say, look, the divide is not Dem versus R, it's rural versus urban, and do a lot of good work to help rural areas of New Mexico. I'm still committed to doing that. It's a little bit different this year, and this is very unusual because crime seems to be impacting both urban and rural areas. And so I almost see us all coming together with whatever the differences are, is that there's a drug problem, there's a mental health issues, right? And now we're not even separated by geography. Right, it's a New Mexico problem, and so I'm excited about this session because I feel like we're all coming together on the same page, just as New Mexicans, no matter how you're registered or where you're from. All of these proposed bills lined out by the governor and supported by Republicans in the past could bring good change to New Mexico.
Senator, I don't want to end on a negative note, but you, during the special session over the summer, you were the victim of a crime here in Santa Fe. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that impacted your way of thinking in terms of pursuing the types of legislation that you feel New Mexico needs to pursue during this session?
During the special session, ironically, I had to have my car broken into while I was staying. And I want to say nice part of Santa Fe. I consider Santa Fe pretty nice everywhere, but it wasn't too far from the Capitol. I'd had my car broken into overnight, and it wasn't just broken into. I mean, it was destroyed. The dash was removed. The car was just ransacked overnight, and it's such a violation. But I have to tell you, Daniel, that's not unique to our urban areas anymore. That could happen in a lot of rural towns right now, and especially with, drug addictions or poverty rates that the way they are. And that's why I'm saying it's time. It was a reminder that we need to go in there and do good work. It was unfortunate that we adjourned abruptly that day and didn't handle any of that. But hey, we're here this time. We've got 58 more days to make change and do right by New Mexicans, and we need to get to work.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Senator. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I look forward to working with you.
I do too. Thanks.
We'll take a quick break and discuss some of the highlights of the first week of the session and look ahead at what's to come for week 2.
This is Patrick Dorsey, publisher of the Santa Fe New Mexican. Looking to reach a wider audience and grow your business? For 175 years, the Santa Fe New Mexican has been the trusted voice of Santa Fe, with unmatched local reach in print and online. In addition to our long-standing, independent, family-owned newspaper, we have a full-fledged marketing team with the expertise to help you succeed in the 21st century. From traditional print to precision targeted digital advertising, we have the tools to connect you with your ideal customers. Partner with us and see the results for yourself. Advertise with the Santa Fe New Mexican and unlock your business's full potential. Visit us at santafenewmexican.com/advertising or call us at 505-995-3852. Thank you.
We're back with Around the Roundhouse. I'm your host, Daniel Chacon. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham kicked off the legislative session with her State of the State address. The event drew a slew of dignitaries and residents from across the state. While there weren't any disruptions from the gallery like last year, some New Mexicans were quite upset security allowed cabinet secretaries and their staff into the gallery before the general public, and seating ran out. As he waited for a seat to open after the gallery had reached capacity, Francisco Apodaca of Las Vegas said he got in line around 9:30 in the morning, several hours before the governor spoke at about 2 p.m.
Look, this is the people's house, as I said before. But they let all the governor's staff and all cabinet staff to take up seats. The public should be here to view because they want to supposedly eliminate people from protesting. Well, that's against the freedom of speech. It's a direct constitutional violation. By having state employees sitting there who are not doing their jobs, sitting on their butts and on my tax dollar, that's wrong.
State Representative Michaela Lara Cadena, a Democrat from Mesilla, gathered with people waiting at the door and said she was incredibly disappointed.
We have incredible people in state government. They do their jobs every single day, but they don't need to be in the gallery today. They could be webcasting. We have folks who've come from all over the state, including representing sovereign nations, who are here to be part in a sovereign, as their distinct form of government, in conversation with what we do as the New Mexico legislature, and they're waiting in the hall because we filled it with governor, staff, and their friends, dragging people in with no passes by the hand. We had other passes, I guess the legislature gave away. All I saw was some high donor lobbyist walking in. That's not what New Mexico should be about.
During the speech, the governor struck a positive tone, highlighting what she called 6 years of incredible success.
And I know that we start like this every year, but it helps us all to get into a rhythm. We're friends, we're colleagues, we care about each other. But it is important that we do talk about our shared achievements today. And there are many in education, in jobs, the environment, healthcare, and so much more. We've been making smart choices with record oil and gas revenues, including fortifying our general fund reserves and strengthening our pension funds. Now that work has led to incredible achievements and investments, but it's also prompted Moody's to upgrade New Mexico's credit outlook from stable to positive.
At the same time, the governor said the state faces challenges and specifically mentioned public safety and child well-being. She called for an independent outside expert in child welfare and foster care to evaluate the Children, Youth, and Families Department, as well as a new independent child protection authority jointly appointed by the legislature and the executive branch of government.
I'm introducing two new proposals that support families that foster children and grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. Too many of these families are struggling to afford basic, everyday needs. So today, I'm proposing to exempt these families from personal income tax. And I want to double their stipend support up to, and if you want to make it bigger, go right ahead, $900 extra per month per child, minimum.
To try to address crime, the governor called for tougher penalties for felons in possession of a firearm, as well as reforming the state's criminal competency laws.
Everyone in this room knows that crime is out of control in New Mexico. And even our public safety professionals agree. We're in a state of crisis. Too many of us simply don't feel safe in our communities And that is absolutely, frankly, completely unacceptable. Right? You can clap for that. It's unacceptable. Today, right now, more than 1/3 of New Mexicans, a third of us, say that they have been the victim of a serious crime. The violent crime rate in New Mexico is twice the national average. Addiction is rampant, and we're clearly, all of us, struggling to protect New Mexicans from this madness.
The governor urged lawmakers to work together and said the 60-day session represents an opportunity to make New Mexicans' lives better.
Clearly, there's a lot of work left to do, but that's why we are all here today, to make life better for New Mexicans and to stand up for the people in our communities. And we have shown over and over again that New Mexico's past need not predict its future. We've made incredible progress with big, bold initiatives that have laid the foundation for enduring generational change. We may not always agree, but we can continue to agree that we can work together for the people we collectively serve. What we do in this session can and should cement our collective and enduring legacy of lifting up all New Mexicans.
The first week of the session was relatively uneventful, with bill introductions, new committee assignments, and committee chairs holding organizational meetings. The big first order of business was both chambers of the legislature passing the so-called feed bill, which funds the operations of the session as well as the operating budgets of agencies like the Legislative Counsel Service and the Legislative Finance Committee. As lawmakers embark on the second week of the session, New Mexicans can expect the legislature to ramp up and start to hold committee hearings on proposed pieces of legislation, and we'll be there to cover it. Thanks again to Senator Crystal Brantley for joining us, and thank you for listening to Around the Roundhouse. Join us each week as we share the latest from the Capitol by subscribing to our podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. The New Mexican has a team of reporters and photographers at the Roundhouse each day during the 60-day session to provide you with the latest developments. Follow our coverage online at santafenewmexican.com, where you can also subscribe to our political newsletter, The Roundhouse Report, for updates sent directly to your inbox. Until next time, I'm Daniel Chacon, and this has been Around the Roundhouse.